Welcome to Life Stories, where we dive deep into real, raw emotions and life changing experiences. Today, we bring you the tale of Jack Thompson, a successful architect who discovers his wife Emily's affair after 12 years of marriage. As secrets unravel and trust shatters, Jack finds himself forced to confront not only the woman he loved, but also the powerful man who has taken her heart. What happens next is a story of betrayal, revenge, and ultimately self reclamation. Stay tuned as we unfold this powerful journey. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to begin today's story. I stood in the doorway of our kitchen, watching Emily, my wife of 12 years, preparing dinner. There was a certain grace in the way she moved, something that had always drawn me to her. I had admired the way she worked, how she balanced her professional drive with our family life. But tonight, as I watched her chopping vegetables with practiced precision, something felt different. The rhythm of her movements seemed to mirror the mechanical routine we had fallen into over the years. It wasn't the warmth I once felt. It was as if I was watching someone else, a stranger. I cleared my throat, and the sound seemed to break the spell. "Need a hand?" I asked, rolling up my sleeves. She smiled, but it was distracted, absent. Without looking up, she replied, "I've got it covered." "How was your meeting with that potential client?" I asked, trying to find a thread to pull us back into our old rhythm. Her response was quick, almost robotic. "It went well. The Westridge account could be our biggest yet." I watched her, waiting for more. We'd built this life together. Started my architecture firm in our garage when we were both just 24, full of dreams and aspirations. Emily had supported me with her corporate job at Brookfield Enterprises, and now, 12 years later, I had a growing firm. But as her words hung in the air, I felt an unsettling distance between us. She was distant, distracted in a way that seemed different from her usual focus. Later that night, as we prepared for bed, I caught her checking her phone again. This was the third time in the past hour. I didn't say anything at first. I wasn't the type to complain about her work habits. After all, she had worked hard to get where she was, senior director at Brookfield, and I admired her ambition. But tonight, something in the way she quickly flipped the phone over when she saw me watching her made a knot form in my stomach. "Work never stops," she said, trying to smile, but failing to mask the unease in her voice. I climbed into bed beside her, trying to push aside the growing suspicion. "Speaking of work," I said, my voice low, "I cleared my schedule for your company gala next month. First time in 3 years I'll make it to one of these things." Her smile tightened, and a flicker of something crossed her face. "Oh, about that, it might be better if you sit this one out. These events are just corporate politics. I thought we agreed I should make an appearance." I wasn't sure what bothered me more, the way she dismissed it so casually, or the way she seemed to avoid eye contact as she said it. I had been to every company event she'd attended, always proud to show up beside her, but tonight I felt a shift in her, something cold and unspoken. "You've mentioned before how everyone brings their spouses," I pressed. "It's just the norm. My presence is expected, and you've always said it's good for appearances." She sighed, a little too loudly, and glanced at me quickly. "My new boss is really focused on keeping these things professional. Some of the executives have complained about previous years getting too casual." Her words were reasonable, but the way she said them felt off. I felt a tightening in my chest, an unsettling awareness that something was wrong. Maybe I was overthinking it. Maybe she was right. But it was then, in the quiet of our bedroom, that I had a sinking feeling that something deeper was unraveling beneath the surface of our marriage. The next morning, I left early for a site visit. As I backed out of the driveway, I saw a sleek black Tesla slow near our house before it sped off. I didn't think much of it at first. It wasn't unusual for fancy cars to pass by our neighborhood. But then, 3 days later, I spotted the same Tesla again, parked just 2 blocks away from our home. That afternoon, I called Emily from the office. "Hey, I forgot some drawings at home," I said, trying to sound casual. "Are you still at work?" "Quarterly planning meeting," she replied, her voice softer than usual. Won't be home until late. In the background, I could hear the unmistakable sounds of a restaurant, clinking glasses, low conversations. She had told me she would be working late, but now I wasn't so sure. That night, I sat staring at our wedding photo on the mantel. Emily had looked radiant on that day, holding wildflowers in a simple white dress. It had been one of the happiest days of my life. I had promised myself that our marriage would be different. My parents' divorce had left me with scars, and I swore I wouldn't let history repeat itself. But something was different now. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was losing her, that the foundation of our marriage was cracking, piece by piece. And that night, I did something I hadn't ever imagined I would. I opened my laptop, hesitated for a long moment, and then typed the words, "Your spouse is having an affair." For the first time, the thought didn't seem like a paranoid delusion. It felt like a truth I had been blind to for too long. The next few days blurred together. I couldn't focus on work, couldn't push the thought of Emily and Dylan Carter out of my head. It wasn't just the phone checks, the unexplained late nights, or the casual dismissals. It was everything. All of it coming together in a slow, creeping realization that my worst fears were not just doubts, they were facts. I wasn't proud of what I did next, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being lied to. I installed a tracking app on Emily's phone while she was in the shower. It was easy enough to figure out her passwords when she typed them in front of me without thinking. And when I drove past her office one evening after she claimed to be working late, I found her parking spot empty. There was no reason for the unease I felt when I saw that, but the knot in my stomach only tightened as I followed her patterns. 2 weeks passed before I had enough evidence to be sure. Tuesday lunches that stretched far too long, work meetings that extended into late evenings, only to return home smelling of an unfamiliar cologne. The texts she deleted almost immediately after reading them. The name kept coming up, Dylan Carter. Newly appointed as the chief strategy officer at Brookfield Enterprises, Dylan was a man who, on paper, seemed to have everything I didn't: corporate polish, power, and control. It made sense that Emily, always the ambitious one, might be drawn to him. But what stung the most was realizing that she was likely more than just a colleague to him. The first real blow came when I followed Emily to an upscale restaurant downtown one evening. I watched through the window as Dylan greeted her with a kiss that was anything but professional. It hit me harder than I expected, even though I had suspected it for weeks. Seeing it with my own eyes was like a gut punch that stole my breath. That same night, Emily came home at 11:30 p.m., claiming that she had been networking with clients. I kissed her goodnight, pretending to believe her, but inside I was choking on my anger. I went to the guest bathroom and vomited until my throat burned. I had never felt so small, so powerless in my own home. The next morning, I found myself at my desk, staring at the building designs in front of me without seeing them. Perry Morales, my oldest friend and business partner, found me there an hour later. He set a coffee down on my desk, looking at me with concern. "You look like hell," he remarked, his tone soft but full of meaning. "I don't know what to do," I admitted, my voice hollow. "Emily's having an affair." Perry's expression shifted quickly, from shock to anger, then to sympathy. "Are you certain?" "Certain enough," I said. "From what I can piece together, it's been going on for at least 2 months." Perry paused, the weight of my words sinking in. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know," I whispered. "Part of me wants to walk away, but another part of me wants to burn everything down. Make them both pay." "Be careful with that second option," Perry warned, his voice low. "Scorched earth leaves nothing to rebuild on." "Maybe there's nothing left to rebuild," I replied. The words felt empty as soon as I spoke them. But part of me meant it. I had never imagined my marriage would end like this, not in a million years. The betrayal cut deeper than anything I had ever experienced. Later that evening, Emily texted me, "Have to attend company gala this weekend. Dylan insists all department heads be there." I stared at the screen, my blood running cold. She had never mentioned Dylan by first name before. a small slip that confirmed everything. I thought back to the years we had spent building a life together. Was it all a lie? I smiled, the bitterness in my chest rising. I thought that was next month, I replied. Last minute planning change? Sorry for the confusion, she said. Don't wait up. I could feel the rage building inside me. 12 years of marriage, and I was now just an afterthought. I wasn't going to sit idly by anymore. I called Leo Dawkins, my old college roommate, now a corporate security expert. Leo, I need a favor, I said, my voice steady but determined. This is going to get ugly. I wasn't sure where it would all lead, but I knew I had to be ready for whatever came next. This wasn't just about Emily anymore. It was about taking back control. The days following my confrontation with the truth felt like an endless spiral of rage and helplessness. I had all the evidence I needed, messages, photos, a trail of lies, but I wasn't ready to confront Emily. Not yet. I needed to take a more strategic approach. This wasn't just about the betrayal I felt in my heart. It was about making sure that when the dust settled, I was the one standing. I turned to Leo Dawkins for help. Leo had always been the kind of person who knew how to get things done without asking too many questions. He had transitioned from military intelligence into corporate security, a move that made him the perfect person for what I needed. We met at a bar on the outskirts of town, far from anyone who might recognize us. Leo was wearing a dark jacket, his usual steely gaze scanning the room before settling on me. All right, what's the plan? He asked, his voice low and steady. I need everything you can find on Dylan Carter, I said. Professional history, personal habits, any skeletons. I need to know if there's a way to bring him down. Leo studied me for a moment, then nodded. I'll get you what I can, but I'm not doing anything illegal. No breaking and entering, Jack. I'm not asking for anything like that, I replied, the tension in my chest still tight. I just need information. I'll handle the rest. For the next 3 days, I waited, my mind racing. I couldn't shake the image of Emily and Dylan together at that restaurant, their kiss still fresh in my mind. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that it wasn't just about her affair. It was about everything she had told me. Every excuse, every late night, every moment I had trusted her. What had I missed all this time? When Leo called with what he had found, my heart sank. Dylan Carter had an impeccable resume, educated at Wharton, a former CEO of a mid-tier company, before being fast-tracked to his position at Brookfield. He was a man with connections, a man who had used those connections to climb to the top. But there was more beneath the surface. 3 companies in 15 years, each departure following rumors of infidelity, including an affair with a subordinate at one of his previous companies. And then there was the pattern with Emily. Her promotion to senior director had come soon after Dylan's arrival, an unusual move given her relatively short tenure at Brookfield. Leo also dug up a nugget that hit harder than I expected. Dylan had been groomed to replace the retiring CEO at Brookfield, Constance Albright, within the next year. The board was already in the know, but it hadn't been made public yet. Dylan's reputation was vital to the transition. I felt a cold satisfaction in knowing that I wasn't the only one who had been hurt by Dylan's manipulations. But that didn't make the betrayal easier to bear. Emily, my wife, had fallen for a man who represented everything I wasn't. Corporate power, polished charm, and ambition. In a strange way, I envied him. He had everything I lacked in that world, and yet it was the very thing that had driven Emily away from me. As I processed the information, the plan I had been forming began to take shape. I wasn't going to just confront Emily. I was going to expose her affair, Dylan's unethical past, and destroy the foundations they had built together. This wasn't about petty revenge. It was about taking back control over my own life. The final piece of my plan came when I found an invitation to the upcoming company gala buried in Emily's desk drawer. It was the perfect opportunity. The gala, the very event that Emily had insisted I skip, would be the stage for the first move in my calculated chess game. I wasn't just going to be a bystander anymore. I was going to make them see what I could do when I was no longer the fool. The night of the Brookfield Enterprises Gala arrived, and I had never felt more prepared. I had spent weeks, if not months, planning my every move. This wasn't just any gala. It was the stage for the next act in my slowly unfolding play. I was no longer the dutiful husband who quietly supported Emily's career from the sidelines. No, tonight I would be part of her world, but not in the way she expected. I arrived at the Wentworth Hotel, the venue for the gala, precisely at 8:30 p.m. The ballroom glittered under the light of crystal chandeliers, filled with the city's elite, executives in tuxedos, women in designer gowns. It all looked like a well-orchestrated dance, each person playing their part in a polished show of corporate success. But tonight, the only performance that mattered was mine. I spotted Emily immediately, her red dress catching the light. She looked beautiful, as always, but there was something in the way she laughed at something Dylan said, a subtle shift in her posture that made my stomach churn. Dylan's hand rested possessively on her lower back, a gesture that was anything but professional. It was clear they had a connection, and it was more than just business. I walked toward them, my steps measured, controlled. I could feel my heart beating faster with every stride. When Emily saw me, her expression shifted from surprise to shock, and then to something I couldn't quite place. Guilt, perhaps? Her smile faltered, and her eyes widened in disbelief. "Nolan?" she exclaimed a little too loudly. "What are you doing here?" I leaned in and kissed her cheek, the kiss lingering a bit longer than necessary. "Surprising my wife," I replied smoothly. "You mentioned how important these events are, and I wanted to support you." Dylan extended his hand with a smoothness that barely masked his confusion. "You must be Vanessa's husband," he said, a forced smile on his face. "Nolan Reeves, I presume? I've heard so much about you." I shook his hand firmly, every inch the professional architect, confident and composed. "Nice to meet you," I said, my voice neutral. "I've heard a lot about you as well." The awkward silence that followed was broken when Constance Albright, the CEO of Brookfield, stepped forward. She seemed genuinely interested in me. "So, you're the mysterious architect husband Vanessa rarely brings to our events," she said with a smile. "It's good to finally meet you." I nodded, smiling back. "Work keeps me busy, but I wouldn't miss this one," I said. "Vanessa's been working such late hours recently, I was beginning to forget what she looked like." Emily's smile tightened. The tension between us was palpable. She had underestimated me, but now I was playing her game, and I was going to win. After a few minutes of small talk, Emily excused herself to use the ladies' room. Dylan seemed to follow her almost immediately, but I wasn't going to let this moment pass without making my move. I waited for exactly 2 minutes before heading toward the corridor where the restrooms were located. As I rounded the corner, I saw them, Emily and Dylan, locked in a heated exchange. Dylan was speaking in hushed tones, his face contorted with frustration. "What is he doing here?" he demanded. "I don't know," Emily replied, her voice tight. "He must have found the invitation." "Get rid of him after dinner." "Say you have to stay for a leadership meeting. We'll still have time at my place later." I had heard enough. I stepped back into the crowd, regaining my composure. When Emily returned, she quickly made her way back to the table, her face flushed with a mixture of embarrassment and panic. She sat down beside me, forcing a smile. "Everything okay?" I asked, as if nothing had happened. "Just touching up my makeup," she muttered. I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I spent the rest of the dinner playing the perfect husband. I made polite conversation with the executives, complimenting Constance Albright on the company's new sustainability initiatives and asking Dylan about Brookfield's expansion strategies. No one would have guessed the storm brewing beneath my calm exterior. After the meal, Emily excused herself to the dance floor, clearly eager to leave the awkward situation. I followed her. As we swayed to the music, I whispered in her ear, "By the way, I need to use your phone. Mine died, and I'm expecting a client call." She hesitated, but handed it over. I pretended to make a call, but in reality, I quickly navigated to her messages. I found the thread with Dylan, dozens of incriminating texts that I forwarded to my email without a second thought. I deleted the message from her sent folder, making sure there was no trace left. When I returned to the table, Emily was deep in conversation with Constance. I took my seat, watching the last remnants of her composure slip away. She was starting to realize that the game had changed. As the night wound down, I could see the fear in her eyes, though she tried to hide it. But the damage had already been done. The truth had been exposed, and I was no longer the man who would let her control the narrative. The first phase of my plan had succeeded. As the days passed after the gala, I couldn't shake the feeling that everything had changed. The battle between Emily and me had been fought on so many fronts, but it wasn't until that moment at the gala that I realized the full extent of what I was capable of. I had set my plan in motion, and there was no turning back. Emily's world, the one she had built with Dylan and the others, was now crumbling under the weight of her own lies. The fallout was swift, but it was only the beginning. Emily tried to deflect, tried to shift the blame, but nothing could erase the truth. As she watched her career at Brookfield unravel, I saw the woman I once knew, a woman who had been so driven, so determined, now facing the consequences of her choices. For me, there was no satisfaction in her downfall, no relief in watching her squirm. I had never wanted this, but I had to protect myself. In the end, I realized that this wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming the life I had almost lost. As for Dylan, he tried to fight back, but it was too late. His reputation, already fragile, shattered in the wake of the scandal. I didn't care about his downfall, but I knew the truth had to come out. Months later, as I moved forward with my business and life, I found peace in knowing that I had taken control. I had rebuilt what had been torn apart, not just professionally, but personally. I had learned that in life, the only thing you can truly control is how you respond to the storms that come your way. If you've enjoyed this story, please make sure to subscribe to our channel to stay updated with more life-changing stories. Thank you for watching.